gosh.
Oh, hamstring. Up, sniper, take the other picture.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you can formulate opinions without having true facts.
I'm telling you, think about it logically for just a second.
Dear Reds fans, welcome back to the Zebra Zillionaires. It was a tough one yesterday.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
Well, good morning. A pleasant good Wednesday morning to each and every one of you. For those that were here earlier today, we had some Wi-Fi problems. So what we decided to do is go ahead and tape the show. That was the idea of the brain trust over here. Elliot Rearing. I mean, as the ship was sinking, he wasn't looking to blame anybody for it sinking. He was not looking for the problem. He was looking for the solution.
That's right.
Well done, Elliot.
Thank you. And, you know, when it comes down to it, I think it's all the Pawnee water I've been drinking because it really makes me a whole lot smarter. I came in this morning. I was ready to go. I had a lot of good bits planned, but that's okay. We're going to save them. We're going to move it on. And, you know, when the Titanic was going down, right?
Spell Titanic.
You can't spell Titanic. Listen, the mariachi band continued to play. That's what they did. It was the mariachi band. It was the mariachi band. They continued to play
They had
on.
a mariachi band on the Titanic?
I think there was. Wasn't that
They
it?
did?
It was the mariachi band.
I don't know about mariachi.
Well, and they continued to play as the thing sank all the way to the bottom of the ocean, and Jack on the floating wood froze to death. They never stopped playing, and that's kind of my brain right now. When the Wi-Fi's off, my brain works double time.
That's right.
So what we're going to do is, Elliot's idea, we're going to tape an hour show. We ask you, obviously, if you're watching right now, you've already downloaded it. So we thank you, and thank you for your patience. We'll come back your way tomorrow live as we come your way Monday through Friday. 10 to 12 p. Not so much today. You can join us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. Not so much today. We broadcast live on X. Not so much today. But you can download us, and you have. Just search Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it. Tell everybody about it. Tell your enemies about the show. Check us out. You know, earlier this season, I mean, as recently as, 3 weeks ago? We were wondering if UC basketball is truly ready for prime time. They look soft in losses to Xavier and Dayton. And, of course, we knew the rugged Big 12 season was right around the corner. UC has had to play with 6 different starting lineups this year. Think about this for a minute. They have only had 3 guys on their team that have played in every game. And, of course, they had to wait on 2 players to get eligible, waiting on and through the bureaucracy known as the NCAA. Then Saturday night happened. A win at number 12 BYU, an emphatic win at that. Last night, the 25th-ranked Texas Longhorns come to town. First ever Big 12 home game for UC. A Texas team, bear in mind, that were it not for an injury last year to Dylan Dessou, they would have probably reached the Final Four. Remember, they blew out Xavier last year in the NCAA tournament. For 40 minutes last night at Fifth Third Arena, it felt like the old days. I was there for the old days. So I remember the old days, the Bob Huggins days. Great crowd, physical, competitive, high level, the highest level of college basketball in the Big 12. Now, UC ends up losing at the end of the night 74-73. They inexplicably, and I really mean inexplicably, could not guard Dessou, who finished with a career-high 33 points. It didn't matter who they put on him. He was the only guy that wanted to shoot the ball until the final 10 seconds of the game. On the whole team. And they do this screen, and he stepped back from a 3. 2 guys would go to the other guy who has 3 shots in the game.
Yep.
And they leave Dessou standing there, bang! But UC is, I'm telling you, they're this close. I don't have a crystal ball about the rest of this year, but they are this close. They still turn it over too much. They'd have won the game had they just made 70% of their free throws. They'd have won the game easily, but they lost. But what this season has a chance to be, they have players now who can play in this league, the very best league in the country. Next up, doesn't get any easier. Number 14, Baylor in Waco on Saturday night. The Bears, by the way, beat BYU last night, 81-72. Speaking of the Big 12, kind of like facing the Steelers. Tough sledding. Iowa State beat number 2 Houston last night, 57-53. That was in Ames, Iowa. Number 1 Purdue got hammered at Nebraska, 88-72. Zach Edey, only 13 points and 7 rebounds. I've watched Nebraska twice this year. Do not sleep on that team. That is a bona fide Big Ten winning team. They've got a good team. Number 6 Kentucky, they've got a good team. Cal!
One day.
I'm going to just keep sending out the bat signal.
One day.
I am going to be their sports information director's worst nightmare. I've gone easy on the gas pedal so far. Been, patient, step back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Little touch, step back. No more. Kentucky wins 90-77. 5 players score in double figures. They shoot over 50% in the game. They've won 6 straight. And good for Travis Steele and Miami of Ohio beating Buffalo 88-65. Meanwhile, tonight, the defending national college basketball champions come to town. And you're going to be there, Reed Mouse.
I am going to be there. I was there last year when Xavier beat UConn at home. They swept UConn at home last year. We own UConn. And we're going to do it again tonight. We're going to win.
I was debating going to this game, and what's going to happen now, because of this whole thing, this whole debacle that we've endured this morning, and because he last night, Tom, was texting me nonstop about how UC lost, and he's going on this big victory tour. How was the moral
Not
victory?
a victory tour. I just couldn't believe they lost.
I couldn't believe they lost.
I might
favorite.
go to the Cintas Center tonight in all UC garb, and we'll just cheer on UConn the whole night.
Tom,
That's what I might do.
Tom, what time are we getting to Dana's tonight? You and I.
Talking about Dana Gardens?
Yes. Little pregame beer. Walk over to
See,
Cintas.
the irony is Dana Gardens is exactly my kind of joint.
I know it is.
There's some people out there for some reason
A
who
Xavier
think,
place.
you had a big-time job or this or that, whatever it was, that, you don't go to. That is my kind of place. Those are the kinds of joints I go to.
That's right.
But I'm not going to that one.
That's right.
Why?
There are a lot of those in this town.
You don't know which Xavier player is going to drop his pants that hour. That's what it comes down to.
What?
You don't know this
You
story?
don't know that
Tom?
story?
No.
JP McCura.
JP McCura
There's a surprise. Go ahead.
JP McCura got arrested for dropping his pants at the bar.
Dropping his
What do you mean
drawers.
dropping his pants at the bar?
He stood up on the bar. And
Stood on the bar and dropped his
he
trousers.
dropped his trousers.
Down to his naked or down to his skivvies?
I believe it was his naked.
It was Tom. Tom.
You've
I'm a
never heard this?
I've never heard that story before.
Tom, I'm a very confident person. The confidence that it has, that you have to stand on a bar and drop trunks, that's a lot of confidence from JP McCura.
It is. You got to give it up to him for that.
And he's beloved in that town. He's beloved in that little Norwood area. So good for him.
JP McCura, put him in the same as Adam Kunkel. I don't like it. I didn't like JP McCura.
That's right. I don't like him either. Mick Cronin hated him.
I wasn't a big J.P. McCura fan. And again, that's normally my kind of, but for some reason there was something about him that rubbed me the wrong way.
I was a Trayvon Blewett guy. Trayvon Blewett was a gamer. That was a good ball player.
Well, McCura was a gamer. You can't take that away from him. He was a gamer now.
Sure.
He played his tail off and he gave you everything he had.
That's
but there
true.
was something about him that
He
just,
played a lot more.
he
off,
had a
too.
lot more kind of Christian Leitner in him.
He was very hateable. He was
That's
very,
what I mean.
very
Yeah,
hateable.
I think that's a good analogy.
You're right.
Yeah, all right,
I just
fair.
thought of that.
That's fair.
All right.
I'll see you tonight at like 7.
Unlikely. In fact, no chance. NUN none. UConn's ranked 4th. They've won 3 straight. Now for Xavier, they're 7-7. I mean, your record says what you are. And right now, plenty of time to get it turned around, but tonight would help. They're 1-2 in the Big East. Tip-off is set for 8:30 on FS1. Other games tonight, good one in the Big Ten. Number 15, Wisconsin against a solid Ohio State team in Columbus. And Northern Kentucky travels to Oakland. We've talked about Oakland a lot this year.
Do you think they'll get revenge for Xavier? You think they have enough spirit for this city? I know they're Northern Kentucky, but do you
Right.
think they have the
You're talking about
gumption?
Oakland.
Yeah, they're going to have to beat Oakland for Xavier. If they beat Oakland, they're doing it for the X-Men over there in Norwood.
Is that why Northern Kentucky beat UC last year for Xavier?
Probably. Now that I think about it, makes a lot of sense.
Because Xavier has a hard time beating UC on their own.
That's an understatement.
That's true. Not to go on another tangent, they also had internet issues. I don't know if you remember this. So I was working the game at 700 WLW, and I was Dan Horde and Mo Egger and Terry Nelson were all there. Usually how we do, they set up like a Comrex. I get it through the system, and it sounds beautiful.
Right.
What happened was both broadcasts, Jim Kelch and Rick Roaring, and the Mo Egger, Terry Nelson, Dan Horde broadcast, all of them, the whole Wi-Fi in that arena went down for the game.
The internet in the campus went down.
So what happened was they had to call into the station, and they were passing the phone off to one another during the game. It was one of the most stress-inducing games I've ever produced, but very funny. God bless NKU. I hope they win tonight.
You ever had to do anything like that, Tom? Where you're
Yeah,
calling in
we've
on
had.
the phone?
Yeah. Many times. That stuff happens. It's
Reds-
kind of like our internet today. It happens. It just on Comrex, it doesn't happen as much as Spectrum.
That's right.
And apparently there are issues with Spectrum here in Hamilton specifically. Some have said the lawnmower man hit a line somewhere.
He's cutting cords. Cutting cords. He's listening. You might say it's 10 degrees outside. The wind's blowing 40 mile per hour. That doesn't stop him. You ever hear of a winter jacket? He's heard of them. He goes outside. He mows these lawns. If he runs a cord, damn with you. Damn with these cords. And he'll go around the streets and cut everything. Everything in sight.
Did you say lawns?
Lawns. Cement. Did I say lawns?
You
I meant
said
cement.
lawn, right.
I meant
the
cement.
sidewalk.
My bad, yeah.
Right. Or he's very good, especially I've noticed on the biker lanes right next to the regular lanes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
They're
where he
always
shines.
Perfectly manicured. In the NFL, congratulations to Teddy Karras, Bengals offensive lineman, as you know. Bengal Nation voted Karras as the winner of the Nationwide Charity Challenge. Now, Karras, already named as the team's Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. He could win that nationally when they get to those awards around the Super Bowl. But he won $35,000 for this, thanks to the fans. And he is donating that money to the Village of Mercy, which is a nonprofit organization for adults living with disabilities. And that's in his hometown of Indianapolis. Congratulations. The Tennessee Titans. We talked yesterday about you better have somebody in mind who's going to be better than what you got.
That's right.
And I don't know who that might be for them. But it's hard to believe they get better than Mike Vrabel. He is gone after back-to-back losing seasons as Titans head coach. From 2018, 19, 20, and 21, the former Buckeye star led the Titans to 4 straight winning seasons, 2 division titles, an AFC championship game. He was named the NFL Coach of the Year 2 years ago. And now he stinks? He will not be unemployed for very long. We'll talk about that in a minute. How about NFL viewership? Did you see this note today? Games averaged. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about average. Those Saturday games they play, the games at 9 o'clock in the morning when they play overseas in Germany and London, wherever else, the 1 o'clock games, the 4 o'clock games, the 4:30 games, the Sunday night games, Monday night games, and streaming on Thursday nights. So all of those tied into one. Averaged nearly 18 million viewers. Averaged. That's tied for the second highest since such tracking began in 1995. College football's national championship game saw the second highest rating during the college football playoff era. Michigan and Washington at 26 million viewers. If you're wondering, the highest rated ever college football championship game was the very first college football playoff championship game in 2015, a whopping 33 million. This year was 26. 33 million in 2015 watched Ohio State beat Oregon. All right. Marty Brenneman is going to join us on Friday. We were supposed to have him today, but that's going to be Friday. And then tomorrow, rather than today, I'm going to rank 1 through 14 the teams in the NFL, which I believe have the best chance of winning the Super Bowl. Now, think about this for a minute. We're going to get into this tomorrow, and I'm going to allow you guys and encourage you, and I know you, I didn't even have to ask you or encourage you. You were going to do it anyway, is pick it apart. Okay, that's why we're here, right? Healthy debate.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
You know, when you sit down and you start thinking about this kind of thing, and thank you for the reminder last night. I was wrapped up in the UC game, Reed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, you have to start thinking about, okay, A, who's healthy? Well, no, A, who's good, right? Okay, who's good? But the chances of making the Super Bowl are not only if you're good, but where you're playing, right? How many home games might you get versus road games, right?
Right.
So you look at a team like Cleveland. I think Cleveland's one of the top 5-6 teams in the NFL. But Cleveland would have to go win 3 straight outside of colliding with ultimately the 6 or the 7 seed. Right. Okay, and that would take a series of miracles, but it's happened before. But Cleveland would have to do what the Bengals did 3 years ago. They'd have to win every game on the road. Kansas City. I mean, you got to love Kansas City. They are who they are, right? 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, right? They played in 3 of the last, 5? But this will be the first year Patrick Mahomes, outside of the first game this weekend, conceivably has to go on the road. They have to go play fill in the blank. Buffalo, Baltimore, somebody like that. So when you're sitting down to do that kind of thing, it's just like over in the NFC. You know, Lions got a home game against the Rams. I think you can flip a coin in that game, right? Either way. I mean, I'm not so sure, right? But the Rams, are the Rams good enough to win 3 straight games? Then you look at the NFC. And I'm going to flip-flop my number 1 for tomorrow, the more I thought about it driving in this morning. Because you have to consider the quote-unquote easier path, okay, and all those things I just talked about. But then the combination of the conference in and of itself and where the true power lies. I mean, the way Philadelphia is playing compared to the way San Francisco is playing, and then considering that Dallas, playing very well, would have to go play at San Francisco. I think ultimately San Francisco's chances of getting to the Super Bowl, it's not a guarantee, would be better than, say, the Ravens because of the competition they're more than likely to play. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the AFC we already knew was very stacked. I mean, Bengals
even with all the quarterback injuries.
Yeah, even with all the quarterback injuries, the Bengals were the first team out, and they were sitting at 9-8. There was a plenty of 9-8 teams this year, and I mean, the Ravens, like I said before, they're gonna have to play probably like the Browns at some point. The Bills, they're explosive. Yeah, there's a lot of good. The Chiefs, you can never count out the Chiefs. Yep. So yeah, I agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, it just comes down to belabor your point. It just comes down to who do you trust more in the postseason? Do you trust teams like the Dallas Cowboys who haven't shown a whole lot? Do you trust a team like the Philadelphia Eagles who have lost 5 of their last 6 games?
Yep. And look bad.
Yeah, they don't do anything well.
I mean, they look bad.
They don't. I saw someone say they do one thing well, and it's about to get outlawed in the league. And it's the only thing that they do well. But then there's teams like the Bills. Preseason, Super Bowl, one of the Super Bowl favorites, and they're coming on late. Kansas City Chiefs, how can you ever count on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? And then the Browns, who wants to play the Browns? They're so physical. Joe Flacco's playing with almost nothing to lose. So, yeah, the AFC.
Well, and the one team you didn't mention that I'm not sure how many people want to play the Texans.
I agree. I certainly wouldn't.
I mean, you know, they did a little bit of this at the end, but in fairness, C.J. Stroud missed 2 games, out with a concussion. But, man, I mean, they can run it. They can throw it. They're good up front. That Cleveland-Houston game, we're going to talk a lot more about these games Thursday and Friday. In fact, tomorrow, we're going to have our good buddy Voch Lombardi.
There we go.
Gotta love our man Voch.
Love Voch.
If you haven't seen Voch Lombardi, he is a guy, I'm telling you, if you have a buddy who's never watched a show or something, Tune in tomorrow at 10:30. We're going to have Vach on Thursday, and this dude is on his game. I mean, him and Big Low Country down in Atlanta. You get those guys. If you were to put them in a room and start talking football, I could sit there for hours and listen to both of them. Big Low Country's had it going on now down there in Atlanta on X.
I love both.
Did you
those
check
guys.
him out?
I've not checked it out yet. I've not checked out his recent video that you were talking about.
They're really good.
Because I think
he's probably freaking out about the situation in Atlanta.
He's not.
He's not.
He's
No.
celebrating probably.
No, I mean, he's just like, the situation,
quarterback.
it is what it is. And they've gotten rid of the coach, 3 straight 7-10 seasons for
Arthur Smith.
Thank you.
Smith.
Thank you. Drew a blank. Senior moment. Yeah, and so, and the quarterback thing, I think he feels like, could Ritter get better? Yeah, but is he the long-term answer? He's not. But Big Low Country, check him out. That's, I think, his what do you call that, a handle?
Yep, his handle.
His handle. At Big Low Country. That country is with a K. That's how they spell it in Georgia. Country with a K.
That's right, baby. That's right, baby.
Yeah.
I was talking about. I think you were about to go into a little tangent about that Texans Browns game. I will promise you this. That will be the best game in the first round.
You think so?
That will be the best. That will be the best.
Really?
Game.
Lions, Rams?
That's going to be the second best. That's my second best game. First best game. Again, I think it's going to be a shootout. The Texans secondary isn't great. You saw what happened when they played the Bengals. Obviously, Joe Burrow tore them apart in the last quarter of that game. Just ripped them apart. Tyler Boyd did. So I do think it will be a shootout. Joe Flacco has thrown for 300-plus yards in every game he's played. The issue for Joe, and this is my guy, he is due for an interception, at least one a game.
Yeah.
So I think the turnovers will be a factor. If Joe Flacco turns it over 2-3 times, obviously you have to favor the Texans, turnover battle and what have you. And C.J. Stroud, Tom read the stats yesterday. He has 5 interceptions all year long.
Yeah.
That's
Turn the ball
incredible.
over, yeah.
That's incredible. So we'll see. I think that game's going to be a good old-fashioned good one, 35-31 final. And I still will ride with my Cleveland Browns.
You think that game's going to be better than the Dolphins-Chiefs, too?
Oh, I think the Dolphins-Chiefs is going to be a blowout. We're going to talk about it later.
Okay.
But that Dolphins-Chiefs game is going to be a blowout. I'm going to put the largest wager I have ever placed in my life. I will be putting it on the Chiefs. The Dolphins in their last 9 games in cold weather, Tom, 0-9.
There's no surprise.
I've
said for years when they show up in the cold weather, and it's going to be dark and gloomy, and
it's going to be 9
in
degrees,
Kansas
Tom.
City, and it may be snow, and they show up in those white unis with the teal and the orange trim. You got no chance. And that backs up what I'm saying. 0-9 in cold. What constitutes cold weather? Below freezing?
in their last 9 cold weather games, sub 32, I believe, is what the metric was.
That would make sense.
They are 0-9. They have not won a game in cold weather.
I'm gonna look up Kansas City's weather. It's the game Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like negative.
No, that game's
guys.
Saturday night.
It's
Saturday night, the night game.
Okay, well, it's a little warmer on Saturday at night than it would be on Sunday.
What is it,
Sunday, the
11?
weather is supposed to be the high is 0, the low is -7.
Well, that's the weather that's coming to us.
And it feels like negative 12 apparently.
Saturday, the low is 0, the high is 9.
Okay, but 0. Okay, that is the low for the night. High of 9, you said? Okay,
Correct.
now remember, this is an 8:30 kickoff.
Oh, it's going to be 0.
It's going to be brutal.
And it's going to be negative probably 10 with the wind chill.
No doubt.
I went to the AFC Championship game last year, and it wasn't this cold. Like, it was probably around, 10?
It was cold. Our beer was freezing.
Well, that was the story I was going to tell. We would get a beer from the concession stand, and by the time you got back to your seat, the beer would be frozen.
Yeah.
You'd have to warm it up with your hand to keep it liquid.
That's chilly.
We haven't talked about this yet, and I wanted your opinion on it. That game will be broadcasted exclusively on Peacock.
Yeah.
On NBC's Peacock.
I think that, and again, I maybe it's because I'm a little bit used to it now with the Amazon Prime. They've kind of warped my brain where every Thursday I go on my Roku or whatever the hell I have, Amazon Fire Stick. I go on my TV, turn it on. It's an easy thing. I'm used to it. But a playoff game, a primetime playoff game on a streaming service, what's the point? The point is to grow, and maybe the NFL, you just read the numbers there, they don't have to grow. They grow naturally no matter what they do. They can put all these games on streaming services and people will find the time to watch it. But a primetime playoff game should not be on a streaming service. I don't know who greenlit that.
Yeah, where's the mitigation?
It's just, seriously though, it's just a joke. Could you imagine Game 4 of the World Series? We're going to put it on Peacock. Just it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, maybe this is a good segue into the UC game, but how does a Big 12, the biggest
this is
Yeah.
terrible.
the biggest college basketball conference in the nation, the best, the very best, a huge program like Texas, a very proud basketball program in UC, and the game's behind a paywall? It's not on cable? You gotta have ESPN Plus?
I'll tell you one of the highlights of my year yesterday. I have YouTube TV, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is the stuff
I'm a
that
YouTube
you
TV
guys
guy,
will
right?
find out one day. This is the stuff that when you have kids, these are the kinds of things that happen. Okay?
Yep.
So I'm figuring I can't watch a UC game last night. I'm just going to follow it because I didn't think I had ESPN Plus. So, any of you guys have YouTube TV?
I do.
Okay, so you hit the button and all the different apps show up, right?
Yeah,
All the different
yeah,
things,
yeah.
Netflix, whatever it is. Well, we have one on ours that says ESPN. I've never seen it before. Bang, I hit it. All the games on ESPN Plus.
How about that?
Okay, so this is at like 10 till 7. So I scroll over to the logo where it's UC Texas. Push the button. It says starting at 7 o'clock. So I just leave it up figuring it's just going to come on, right? Well, at 7:02, it's not on. And I'm going, oh, okay, well, this is what I figured. We didn't have it. No big deal, whatever. Well, I just clicked down a couple things, clicked back up, pushed it one more time just for you-know-what and giggles, right? Bang! There it is. UC Texas. We have ESPN Plus.
How about that?
So while Luke was home, apparently we're paying
I was
for
going to say,
ESPN
who's
Plus.
getting charged for that?
I haven't even gotten a bill yet.
I think that's a great find, by the way. We found out we found out we had like Apple or is that the app? Apple gives their free streaming service. What is it?
Apple TV?
Apple TV. We had Apple TV. I
Boy,
found
that
it
was
the same way.
complicated. Go ahead.
But anyway, well, I'm just trying to think of it. Anyway, but I came home last night and I'm like, all right, there's a primetime BYU Baylor. Where is this game?
Yeah.
ESPN Plus.
Right.
Where is Purdue? They're about to lose to Nebraska, the number 1 team in the nation. Where can I find that one? Peacock. It's just the streaming services are cute, but I eventually just go back to regular TV.
But I'm with you, and and we can tie a ribbon and talk more about it, but I'm with you all the way. I mean, look, it all comes down to, we all know what it comes down to with this playoff game. End of discussion. NBC walks in the door. They've got this thing that they're trying to make work in Peacock, right?
Yeah.
Like every other major network does. They're spending billions of dollars with the NFL for Sunday Night Football, and they're saying, hey, just like ESPN this year. When they came in and redid their deal, they said, okay, Monday Night Football, but we want not one playoff game, we want 2. And we want to be in the rotation of getting the Super Bowl now moving forward, and they are, right? That's why they went out and hired Buck and Aikman, right? Is because they're going to get a Super Bowl, and that's who they want on the game, understandably so. But it's all money. And I just think sometimes, if you're Major League Baseball or you're, some of these leagues that are kind of, I guess you could argue it both ways. Maybe you put everything on free TV if you're baseball with the numbers that I know they were up a little bit about this year, but the NBA maybe is a better one, or NHL, because the NBA's numbers are totally tanking. I just don't know why you gotta gouge your fans on this one. This is a playoff game. I mean, come on. I was shocked years ago. I was right in the middle of all of it when Fox had the rights to both league championship series in baseball. I did one, Joe Buck did one, right? For a decade, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, Turner walks in and gets the rights to one of the league championship series. Yeah, I mean, I was bummed for me. I mean, I didn't get to do the playoffs anymore. But more importantly, I just thought to myself, as far as the health of the sport is concerned, that why in the world, when you start putting stuff on cable, and back in those days, it was a pretty significant move. Not now. But, why would you do that? Why would you put it behind really a paywall the way it was set up then and put it on Turner? I guess ultimately it's worked out, I guess. I don't know. I think those games would get higher ratings if they were on network television. Yep. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
But this is a shame because you've got, in this game, you've got the Dolphins who have so many exciting players, whether they're any good as a team or not. All the teams are playoff teams, are good teams. But, I mean, they got Tyreek Hill. They got Tua. They got some guys you like to watch. And then you have the model franchise in terms of success in the entire National Football League over the last handful of years. And you got to pay for it. It's too bad, I think.
I agree, and it's arguably one of the more intriguing storylines. Again, they've played this season, but Tyreek Hill going into Kansas City, revenge game,
right.
You could say. I think people would want to see that. I think people, despite what Tom thinks, I do think there's a lot of the, I would say, casual fans that look at those Dolphin Teals and go, I like this team. I like what I'm seeing here. I like the color scheme. I think they're fun.
I love the color scheme.
I think you hate the color scheme. You hate the color scheme.
I love the
You
color
hate it.
scheme.
Come on, Tom.
I don't like whites.
You like the baby.
Warm weather team. Okay? The same color scheme as what Boise State has. I love their unis.
Yep.
Orange and blue and the whole thing going on, right? I love that combination. Denver. I love the combination.
What about the teal?
What about the teal?
Love the teal. So nice.
Come
So
on,
nice.
Tom.
But anyway, I think
teal.
it's a shame. I think it's a shame that they did this.
I didn't
Are
realize.
you going to get Peacock, though? Are you going to subscribe?
Of
and watch
course I am, and that's the worst part of it all is that they know everybody's going to do it
they're
anyway.
they know you're trapped. If you want to feel better about your purchase,
Yep.
not only are you going to get this playoff game this Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
but when you get a Peacock subscription, you then get to watch every WWE pay-per-view. So that's just
Wow.
the cherry on top. So you can
Wow.
watch this game.
Oh, my God.
2 weeks later, you can watch the Royal Rumble.
Wow.
On top of that, you could also watch the Premier League. Watch
There
some
you
soccer.
go.
Like, get into the
What
real
a
game.
bundle.
I saw Casey's face from across the room. He's had that joke in his brain for, I'm not kidding, 15 minutes. He's had that joke cooking up there for
have.
15 minutes.
I didn't even realize it was a problem because I just have Peacock. Me and my wife, we watch Chelsea a lot, and they're on Peacock quite a bit. So I didn't even
Chelsea,
think
is that a sitcom? What is Chelsea?
of Chelsea is the soccer team.
Oh,
It's the
that
soccer team.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say this: I might watch the UC game instead. There's a chance I watch the UC game. UC game might have priority. They play Baylor on Saturday night.
There is no way you're watching the UC game before the playoffs.
Well, I'll tell you this: I have to do Chatterbox Bearcats that night, so I might have to.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
you
well,
have
okay.
to.
Now it's a different ball.
So now we'll see. But that's it. Speaking of UC, can I transition to UC
Yes,
for a
we
second?
can.
Nice
You were there
segue.
last
What
night.
a
Let's
beautiful
start with that.
segue.
You were there last
I
night.
was there, and I was going to tell this story on Box Lunch, but it appears that's broken too. We might do something else. But anyway, we might try that 15-minute show today. We'll introduce that. Anyway, I get down there, Tom. I leave my house. It takes about 25 minutes for my house to get there. I leave at 6 o'clock, me and my dad. I bought tickets for myself and my father. We leave at 6. We get down there about 6:25. Everything's great. The city of Clifton was absolutely jumping. Casey, I don't know if you're able to do this, but the picture I sent you on Twitter, I could be wrong. Tom, I'm not kidding you. The traffic leading into all the garages. The big public one is Campus Green Garage. It's about a 10-minute walk from the arena. You couldn't get in. I did not park my car until 7:05. 7:15. We were in the line. We were in the garage forever.
Oh, so you're late.
So everybody was. So, and I don't know if that really showed on the
It
broadcast.
It did.
But
right
we-
at the very beginning, there were a lot of empty seats.
At the beginning, it was everybody. We were all rushing. We had people sprinting in there, and it was clearly the biggest game this town has had for UC basketball in a long time.
Wow.
A long time. It was a sellout crowd. This was just one of the streets. So this is just one of the entrances coming into the stadium. And I tell you, Tom, they had no way to. Nobody was expecting it, I guess, because it was insane. It took 30 minutes just to get into the garage. I won't even tell you about how long it took to get out. We were at the very top. It was brutal. It was like leaving that garage right outside the Red Stadium. Yep. But I'll tell you what, the atmosphere in that arena was the best I've been to at Fifth Third. It was absolutely beautiful. And again, I'm not. Casey asked me before I got in today, are you pissed off? Are you disappointed? No. And I'm not. And I did the joke with Reed, and Reed's going to do the joke with me about moral victories. But I really think this is the first time in a long time where I can walk away from that game, a tough loss against a great opponent in Texas, in a conference that's legitimately the best basketball conference in America, and I can sit back and I say, this team can compete. This team is good enough to compete with the big boys. We are here. We've made it. Wes Miller has done a very good job at reviving this team. or reviving this program after the crumbs that John Brandon left. And I sit back and I see that the Bearcats, they played a great game offensively, didn't play a great game defensively, and the turnovers and free throws were brutal. But I look at that and I say, if you clean up the silly shit, if you can play fundamental basketball, you're going to win a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
You have a chance to get to the tournament this year. And I was thinking about what would it take to get there, and I really think 8-10 can get it. 9-9, but if we go 8-10, we steal one on Baylor on the road on Saturday. It all balances out. I think this team's good. I think this team's really, really good.
I tell you, there was high praise last night from a Texas coach about Wes Miller and the job he's done. Very high praise after the game last night. He said, look, he says that's one of the most physical teams we've seen in a long time. They're tough. They get after people. He said, but that is Big 12 basketball. That was his quote. Every game seemingly, I'm paraphrasing, but he said that every game, seemingly every possession. You know, the difference between the Big East, for example, and this is not in a disparaging way in any form or fashion, the Big East compared to the Big 12. But UC is the outlier on this thing because they are an urban city school. Most of the schools in the Big 12 are like these college towns, rabid.
That's right.
Right? I mean, insane, right? Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, Kansas, even though it's close to Kansas City. TCU, yeah, they're in Fort Worth, but I mean, and they're coming to town next week. They're having a heck of a year. But Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Baylor, all these teams, basketball, college basketball is the only game in town. You start getting into some of the Big East schools, you know, DePaul, even though they're not even really on the radar, but they're in Chicago. You know, you got Xavier right in the heart of Cincinnati. You've got St. John's and Providence. They all get lost in that whole Connecticut and everything. Louis, they all get wrapped up in this big city stuff. And again, they have great fans in the Big East and great basketball. Marquette, heart of downtown Milwaukee.
Right.
You know,
Creighton's the only one that's really not in the town.
That's right.
Well, they're in Omaha.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like the other ones. You're spot on. But I think the environment is in the Big 12 for every game is just unbelievable. The ACC used to be that way until they expanded. Not as much anymore because you've gotten into some bigger cities, Miami, Boston, places like that. But I tell you what, I watched a game last night, and I mean, I watched it start to finish. I look at a guy like Locken. This time a year ago, we're sitting there, and I was thinking of it the whole game. I mean, this guy now has played. If you'd have told me a year ago that Locken, there was debate about whether he's coming back and all this kind of stuff, that he would be a bona fide, rock solid, if not really good Big 12 player, I'd have said, I'm not so sure about that. Locken is a solid, really good Big 12 player. I mean, is he a number one guy on a great team, even a number two guy? No. But he's scoring. He's averaging 17 through 2 conference games. He gets you 7, 8, 10 rebounds. Now, he did not rebound well last night. I think he only had 4. Skillings. Lukosius is a player, man. That guy is a basketball player.
Which is crazy because if you would have asked me before the season and really in those early games, those warm-up games that we played, I would have said that he might have been the worst player on the court. But the past several games, he has stepped up in a way that nobody on this roster has. With the three-point shooting, this three-point shooting has come out of nowhere. Out of absolutely nowhere. He was making he had one of the best shots I've seen in my life last night. A fadeaway, step back, turnaround jumper, shot clock down to 0.
Late in the game.
Yep. A minute left in this game to take a 2-point lead, or a 3-point lead, I believe, against Texas, ranked Texas at home. It was beautiful. And this is a guy who, by the way, I hate to keep bringing up this story, but you have to when you talk about him. He missed several games because he was run over by a car.
Right.
This is a guy who was run over by a car in the regular season, and he's doing this. He was asked post-game yesterday, what does it take to step up, or how many guys can do what you're doing? And he said, there's 5 guys. It's not just me. But I would argue he's been the guy that has stepped up the biggest. He was the one who took the final shot. And we can talk about it. I would have, if I was Wes Miller, he had 2 timeouts. I would have used one. There was 6 seconds left when he crossed midcourt. I would have called it for a better shot, for a better look. but he's the guy right now, at least. I want the ball in his hands when there's no time left.
Now, you look at the game last night, and another guy that I'm telling you, man, and we said it here on the program, if he ever got active and eligible, the guy who's going to be a player for them in the second half of the season is Jameel Reynolds.
Absolutely.
This guy is a monster.
Yeah.
He's big, he's tough, he can score, he can rebound. He's only playing about 15, 16, 17 minutes a game.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's just getting his sea legs under him. I mean, last night he had 11 points, had that monster dunk late. But the two guys where this cannot happen would happen last night. And this is a difference between winning and losing games in a league like the Big 12 or the Big East or the Big 10. You can't have Bandego go scoreless in the game. Right. That cannot, under any circumstances, happen. And you can't have Day Thomas play 26 minutes and score 2 points. When you have two of your starters, what's that?
Day turned the ball over quite a bit, right?
I mean, when you have two of your guys that you're really counting on, really, really counting on being rock-solid contributors in your rotation, you can't get I think Bandego only played like 15, 17 minutes, something like that last night. I mean, you're talking about between the two of them, you're talking like 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes almost between the two, and you get 2 points.
And I'm wondering what happened last night with Aziz specifically. I'll talk about Day in a second. Aziz, I feel like Jameel came into that game with a fire that I haven't seen out of him yet.
Over for a second.
He was. Yeah. And I got a DM from Colton, a fan of the show. He's like, "This is prime Yancey Gates." He had power down low. He was great defensively. He was bringing the thunder, and this is what we've missed for several seasons.
Yep.
For a long time for UC, we have not had that big guy. We have not had the authoritarian down low that people are afraid to put a body against. And that's what he was last night. And I'm wondering if that had to do with Aziz not being able to play. Maybe Aziz couldn't find his feet. I don't know what it was. But Aziz, having him be a complete no-show was not on my bingo card. Day Thomas, I don't know why he's seeing 26 minutes. I don't understand it. There has to be something in practice where maybe he's able to break the pressure more, right, against the press. Maybe he's not turning the ball over a ton in practice. There has to be some sort of discipline thing that he's doing better than Jizzle, because when Jizzle comes on the court, it's a different ball game.
Yeah,
it's clearly better. Clearly better when he's on the
It's
court.
a different ball game. And again, I mean no disrespect to Day. Day shut down Max Asmus yesterday. He shut him down defensively. So I will give him credit there. But he missed 4 layups. He missed 4 easy layups. When we're talking baby layups. And I think UC missed, similar to Xavier. Xavier missed 11 layups against, who I don't know who they played.
Yeah, right.
Villanova. UC, I think, missed like 13 last night. And these are the things that you can they're so easy to fix. These are easy problems to fix. Free throw shooting. I think they dropped to 270th in the nation after last night. 270th. And I have a clip here. Casey brought the clip up from Wes Miller. I love Wes. I love what you've done with the program. But to say free throws aren't a reason that contributed to that loss is wrong.
The turnovers are really disappointing. Both games, here in league play, we've just turned it over at an incredibly high rate, and that hadn't been the team we've been. But you look down and, you got multiple guys with 2, and then you got a couple guys that are starters with 3 and 4, and we got to do a better job taking it away, because they turn turnovers into easy baskets all night, and that's the kind of stuff that the reason is you lost the game. What I don't want to hear about is free throw shooting. The thing that I hurt every time we lose. Our players hurt every time we lose, but nobody's going to beat himself up more than John Newman tonight, and that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, and it ain't fair, because he shouldn't do it, because one missed free throw on a 1-on-1 does not define the game, but he's going to do that to himself, and I just hate that, and we're going to have his damn back, because that's not it. There's 1,000 reasons why. We had 2 chances to get stops to win a game, and we didn't get stops. That's why we lost the damn game, not because of free throws.
Now you know what he's doing there. And, I mean, look, that's why he is Wes Miller. That's one of the things you like about him. What he's doing there is he knows this kid Newman, who battles his tail off, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Newman is a tough, hard-nosed guy. Cares. I mean, he missed the front end of the 1-and-1 with, 20 seconds, whatever it was, right? Could have put him up by 3 if he makes both of them. So that's all he's doing there, is he's just covering for a kid that he knows is feeling awful in that locker room. But he's spot on. I mean, at the end of the day, he's spot on about the turnovers, like you talked about 2 games ago.
Yep.
Right? Turnovers and defensive stops when you really need them. I just still cannot understand. Watching that game last night, you could tell in the first half last night that Dessou was just feeling it. He's been hurt all year, right? He's getting his legs up underneath him again for the first time. He's only averaging, I think, like 11 points a game.
Yeah.
But this was a guy last year who was the MVP of the Big 12 tournament. He was the best player they had on the team, marching through the first 3 rounds of the tournament, including just killing Xavier last year, and Xavier had a good team. This was their best player, but he got hurt in that game. And so they didn't have him for the Elite 8 game. And the announcers even talked about it last night. If he was healthy, they probably get to the Final Four. Because remember, everybody in Xavier's region last year was getting upset.
Yep.
That's right. They played Miami in the Elite 8.
Right. Now, Miami had a really good team.
Right.
But, the guy who was their best player at the time did not play. So the point I'm making is I just can't understand what happened. Now, the Dessou did not hit the game-winning shot, but he hit enough to kill you. Plays 34 minutes, has 33 points. He shot it, I think, 23, 25 times?
He took damn near half their shots.
Yeah.
He had 24 field goal attempts.
Yeah, there was a point in that game where he had literally half their points. It's tough. It's kind of what happened against BYU. We were able to stop Nell. I believe that's how you pronounce that guy's last name, who had 9 3-pointers with 10 minutes left to go in the game. He was their leading scorer by far at half their points, blah, 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 blah. They were able to shut him down. They were unable to shut Dessou down. And that was obviously the key to the game. I look back, and again, I don't know if you saw this, Tom, the game-winning shot by Max Asmus, there was a clear travel. And I don't know how that's not reviewable in today's game.
It was traveling.
He glid across the court like he was ice skating. So that's, again, you can't obviously sit and blame that one call. There was so much that could have gone right for UC and it didn't. But I look at that game. I'm going to take a step back. I'm looking at it. You lost to a ranked team at home in your first Big 12 game at home with a sellout crowd. My dad and I were standing up half the game. We were in the last row of the arena. Well, the whole stadium was up. It was loud. It was awesome. This is what was promised when we got into the Big 12. This kind of atmosphere, this kind of environment, and it's here. So UC fans, if you have to take solace, if you have to take a moral victory, which I'm not a fan of, but if you want to take a moral victory, it's that this team can compete at a high level. They are going to upset somebody. I guarantee you that. We can beat Houston. We can beat Baylor on the road. We can beat somebody. We won't beat Kansas at Fog Allen. They don't lose at Fog Allen. But I will say this is a competitive roster. If they can figure out the day-to-day jizzle situation, we're going to be good. If Jamil Reynolds can get up to 25 minutes a game, this team's gonna get to a tournament.
How dare you disarm my joke right at the beginning of this segment? Because you're like, Reed's gonna make a joke about moral victories, and you're absolutely right. But I will truly say this about UC. Going into this, and this is coming from the guy that doesn't like UC in the room, coming into this, I think it would surprise nobody. Based on the way that UC played against Xavier, based on the way that they played against Dayton, which were their 2 biggest atmospheres going into league play, I don't think anybody would have been surprised if UC in their first 2 games in the Big 12 crapped down their leg.
Yep.
And they absolutely did not.
Yep.
They go to BYU, beat a ranked team. Come home against a ranked team and lose on a final second shot. I mean, you have to live up to the Big 12 standards as players, as coaches, as fans, and truly UC as an entire program has lived up to the Big 12 standards in their first 2 games. Now, that's not to say that something can go wrong going forward, right?
Yep, that's right.
You can't go, all right, well, it's done. We belong in the Big 12, and it's all.
Yeah, then you're 1-8.
Right. Yep. Yeah. It can go bad in a hurry, but through the first 2 games, they have defied expectations and have lived up to what the Big 12 is about.
Yep, and again, if we don't make the tournament, fine. If UC is unable to make the NCAA tournament, that's fine. If I can play spoiler, if we can be the team that nobody else wants to play, I'll take that. CJ Frederick should be coming back, I assume, relatively soon. He will again be a big help when it comes to the three-point
He will
shooting.
be a big help.
So again, get fully healthy, get right, and we'll be okay.
All right, now let me ask you this. We joke around. I joke around a lot about Xavier. But they have been without a – and nobody has more respect for that basketball program than I do. I've said it before. Look, up until the Travis Steele thing, and some of those were circumstances beyond his control. But, look, he's a head coach, and it is what it is, right?
Right.
But over the past 3.5 decades, no one has gotten it right more than Xavier as far as a head coach is concerned. Going all the way back to the Bob Stack days and on to Pete Gillen and on to Skip Prosser and on to Thad Matta and on to Sean Miller and then bringing Miller back again, Chris Mack. They've always gotten it right. And, I mean, every year they're in the NCAA tournament seemingly. Every year or every other year they're getting to the Sweet 16. Now, they haven't been to the Final Four. They haven't won the whole thing. Fine. We know that. But they are an incredible model of consistency for outstanding and excellent basketball. By far the best in this city over the last 30 years. Now, they haven't had some of the teams UC has had.
Sure.
UC in the Final Four and Elite Eight and things like that, and NBA, although they've had their fair share too. But in it, and maybe I'm offbeat here. It wouldn't be the first time. Isn't there a different sort of vibe in the town, though, when UC's good?
Certainly.
I mean, if UC, okay, I mean, if UC was 500 and Xavier was 12-3, whatever UC is now, 13-3, whatever they are, there would not be near the juice that you have right now with UC at 13-3 and Xavier at 7-7.
I think you're right.
Well, Tom, as I've always said, as a guy who doesn't like the Cincinnati Reds, as a guy who doesn't like UC Bearcats.
How do you grow up in this town and not like the Reds or the Bearcats? Before you get into all that, and I want to hear what you have to say, but I'm just curious. When those words come out of your mouth,
Right.
and I'm not being facetious, I'm not being a wise guy. I'm asking a serious question. You're a born and raised Hamilton, Ohio guy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. How are you not a Reds, not only and UC fan, how are you not a Reds or UC fan?
Xavier's an easy question. I grew up, went to Catholic school my entire life. My dad went to Catholic school his entire life. He roots for Xavier. I root for Notre Dame. So it's just the Catholic thing about rooting for Xavier, rooting for Notre Dame. That's what you do when you're a Catholic from this area, for at least some of us.
Okay.
Not all of us.
Okay.
The Reds thing's a little more complicated. My entire family is Reds fans. I started loving baseball when I was about 7 years old, and this is the worst fan origin story of all time. I literally, when I started playing baseball in coach pitch, I played for the team called the Cubs.
Okay.
So
That's
I wanted,
fair.
I
I've
wanted
heard that.
just solidarity. And I was like, I like the Cubs. Can we go to Cubs games, Dad? Dad, who's the Cubs' best player? Sammy Sosa. All right, Sammy Sosa's my favorite player, and he's still my favorite player to this day. So that's the Cubs thing. So that's beside the point. But as someone, as I mentioned, who doesn't like the Reds, doesn't like the UC, it's undoubtedly better for the town. Like, I enjoy when the Reds are good. Because when you go out in the summer and you go to some bar with your friends, everyone's watching the Reds game. When UC's good and you're traversing through these terrible 3 months in Southwest Ohio, that is January, February, March, because it's cold every day and the sun never shines, there's a little bit of a bright spot when UC's good. People enjoy when UC's good, and it's better for the city. So as someone who doesn't like those two teams, I like it when they're good because it's exciting. And you're absolutely right. When UC's good, it's better for the town than when Xavier's good. Xavier just doesn't have as big of a fan base.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Which makes it worse that they absolutely own UC.
Boy, did they ever.
Xavier has had one losing season in 40 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
One losing season in 40 years.
impressive.
And they very much might have a losing season this year.
Well, we'll see.
They're
We'll
500
see.
right now.
We'll
They played
see.
a very, very tough schedule. Very, very tough schedule. Already played the number 1 team in the country. Already played the number 2 team in the country. Got to play UConn twice. We got to play Creighton twice. Got to play Marquette twice. Like all these teams.
All right, but in fairness,
it's not the Big 12 schedule.
No, but in fairness, they lost to Oakland.
Correct.
And
That's
they lost
what
to
ruins
who
it.
was the other one?
Oakland and Delaware.
Merrimack.
Delaware.
No, we almost lost to
The
Merrimack.
Fighting Blue Hens.
So if they were 9 and 5,
Yeah, 9
it'd
and
look
5,
a
you'd have a little different feel.
Correct.
Very different
Correct.
feel. Yeah.
But they're only 4-point underdogs tonight against the 4th team in the country.
Which you know what? I've always said for years and years, this is one of those games. I said the same thing when Houston came to town. I said the same thing when they went to Purdue. Now, they didn't win either one of those games. But, you know, these are the kinds – a game like tonight is a game where Xavier traditionally, and one of the reasons why they've had one losing season in 40 years, is because they show up for this kind of game.
Yeah, they do.
Crowd will be into it.
Right.
And should be. It's the defending national champs. Hurley storming the sideline over there, all the players you watch in the tournament. I mean, it's going to be going on tonight. I mean, that's the one thing about Cincinnati that, yeah, we may not have a pro basketball team or an NHL team, but when both teams are in the conferences that they're in now, it is going to become the norm if Xavier just can continue to do what it's done and UC can get back to being what it used to be. This is going to be happening 2-3 times a week now, where you've got Texas one night and you got UConn the next night. You got one year Kansas coming to town on a Monday night. You've got Marquette coming to town on a Wednesday night. This is the kind of stuff that's going to be happening now with Cincinnati in the Big 12 and X already in the Big East. All right, couple of other things I want to get to today. Just came across the wire a few minutes ago. Apparently, the Chicago Bears, and we're really shifting gears here, the Bears are going to stay with their head coach, Matt Eberflus. They're going to stay with him for next year.
That makes me think that they are staying with Justin Fields.
Okay, well, here's the thing that was my first reaction. Okay, but he is a defensive coach. Right. Okay, so the two of the 3 biggest decisions the Bears are going to make this offseason are head coach. Apparently, he's coming back. Today, they just announced a few minutes ago they are firing their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. They're also firing their quarterbacks coach, Andrew Janako, I think is how you pronounce his name, and their wide receivers coach, Tyke Tolbert. So of the top 3 guys on the offensive side, coordinator, quarterbacks coach, right? Wide receivers coach, offensive line coach is certainly slotted somewhere in there. But you get the point. 3 of the top 4 guys on the offensive side of the ball where they've struggled are gone. So those are 2 of the 3, and we know what the third one is.
Right.
And that is, are they going to stay with Justin Fields, who's played 3 years at quarterback as a starter, or are they going to use their number 1 pick and go get a new quarterback, whether that's Caleb Williams or whoever else is out there? So that's an interesting note from the National Football League. So it looks like with all the talk about the possibility, not even the talk about the possibility, all the momentum and talk shows in Chicago, it's all about Jim Harbaugh, Casey. It's all about he's coming to the Bears. We got to go get it. Well, you know, Kevin Warren, former commissioner of the Big Ten, who left that job a year ago to become the president of the Bears. He's a guy that's running that operation there now, and apparently he has made the decision along with others in ownership there, the McCaskies and so forth, that they're going to stay with their head coach. You surprised by that?
I'm a little surprised that they are staying with Eberflus. I do think that it was a decision where it's like, well, if you're not going to fire these guys, the offensive side of the ball, then it's probably your job. That's probably what the conversation ended up being. So he ends up getting rid of OC, quarterbacks coach, receivers coach. And the very first thing when you mentioned that, what popped in my mind was, where in the world is Greg Roman at in the NFL right now? He's not in the NFL. He's actually coaching high school football and college football. He decided to take a year off of the NFL to kind of, for health reasons and other things like that. I would be calling him up right now to be my OC. I mean, he took Lamar Jackson and made him an MVP type caliber quarterback. He completely made an offense that was geared around his skill sets, and that's something that I think that they could really use right now with Justin Fields.
Yep.
I feel like they've got a good enough team right now on offense to really get that offense going. They might be a piece or two away on the offensive line, but I think that they've got enough firepower to get that shirt up. They got enough money to go sign some guys. I think at this point, if the Bears make the right coaching decisions, the right hires there, and make a scheme that very similar to Lamar, I think they're going to tear up the NFC. I really do. This year, the coaching for the Bears has not been very good. Not been very good at all. I mean, some of the stuff that they're having Justin Fields do is it's just not who he is. And so that's the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned the firings that took place. The other thing that comes to mind is they must have a lot of confidence in Eberflus as a defensive guy at least.
Which is crazy because their defense has not been good in his entire tenure.
Well, it
Right.
got better,
I mean,
it got better, though, the last 5, 6, 7 weeks. They were one of the best defenses in the NFL the last month and a half. And they only gave up 17 that last game of the year to Green Bay when they got beat.
Yeah, I mean, it was that trade that we kind of made fun of him for, that second-round pick for Montez Sweat. I mean, it ended up playing out exactly how they wanted it to. I know we mentioned it maybe off air, but he led the Bears in sacks and he led the Commanders in sacks.
Right.
So maybe with that newfound defensive line pressure coming, they think that maybe that they can get that turned around too. But that's another question I had is that defense going to be the same, or is it going to get better next year as Matt Eberflus retains control another year? I don't know, because he's without knowing, you know, with the holes that they have, what that defense is going to look like, because they're going to lose Jalen Johnson, their corner. He's a bit of a shutdown corner. And again, they have a lot of money to spend.
They have a lot of money to spend because they're the third youngest team in the NFL. When they played Green Bay the other night, for Green Bay to get in the playoffs, Green Bay is the youngest team.
Right.
Bears are the third youngest team, which generally speaking means you have a lot of guys who haven't hit the lottery money-wise yet. So you can probably go out and spend some cash to get better.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I don't think in that division, I mean, Green Bay's okay. They're a 500 team. They are what they are. Love's going to get better. The Lions have had a great year. What's that?
Love was fantastic.
Yeah, he was. But they're okay as a team. They're just okay. Obviously, I mean, your record says what you are, and they were 9-8. Okay, 9-8. And then you know, Minnesota's in complete disarray. No idea what they're going to do at quarterback. And then Detroit, you know, they had a great year this year, but let's see next year when they got to play a first-place schedule. Let's see what happens next year, because it's a dramatically different ball game playing that first-place schedule than the third or fourth-place schedule.
I think they played the second-place schedule this past year because the Packers might have played a second-place schedule. Here's the thing about the Bears, and we've talked a lot about what they're going to do because there's so many things that they can do, and I always said that I preferred them to do a hard reset, right? Get a new coach, get a new quarterback, reset the whole thing, right? You got one of the best prospects that have come in the NFL draft in the past decade, right? He's right up there with Andrew Luck. He's right up there with Trevor Lawrence. He's right up there with Joe Burrow. But if you're going to stay with Matt Eberflus, that pretty much spells out that they're going to stay with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
That spells that out. And that was already the rumor, was that the Bears were leaning towards staying with Justin Fields and trading away the number one pick. Now, the question is what can you get for that number one pick? You're going to get a lot. You're going to get a king's ransom. You're probably going to get more for that number one pick than you would if you traded Justin Fields. So it's all these things. If they keep Eberflus and draft Caleb Williams, that was the worst case scenario that the Chicago Bears could have done. Because I think, and I've said this, I know DeMarco Ryan and C.J. Stroud proved this wrong, but if you've got a young quarterback, the blueprint's been laid out in the NFL. You get an offensive-minded coach for a young quarterback. It works. It's continued to work. It works more than the defensive guy. Ryan and C.J. Stroud are the outliers. Everywhere else, look at all the young guys that have succeeded. It's because they have an offensive-minded coach on their side. So if you're going to keep Matt Eberflus and then draft Caleb Williams, you're just putting him in a terrible decision. So I think that They've laid their bed. They're going to keep Justin Fields. Now the problem is now that everyone knows that, you lose a little bit of the negotiating power trying to trade away that first overall pick because they know you're not going to keep it. So I don't know. The Bears are such a weird franchise. They continuously do things wrong. They're still stuck in 1985 for some weird reason.
Yep.
They still want to be this hard-nosed team, even though that's not the way to succeed. And it hasn't been successful for them. So I don't know. The Bears are such a weird team.
All right, last thing before we get out of here today, we're taping the show and we're back live tomorrow, we hope is. I just want to get you guys, before we wrap it up, your thoughts on Mike Vrabel. It's a Johnny-come-late. I mean, what have you done for me lately kind of league, right?
Yep.
I mean, 4 straight years, goes to the playoffs, wins 2 divisional championships, gets to an AFC championship game. He's a coach of the year. Now the last 2 seasons, they had Tannehill hurt. Regardless of what you think about him, they draft Levis. They bring in a new GM just a year ago, which certainly had some kind of factor in all this. There was talk about, the owner was asked, she was asked yesterday, they were contemplating trading Mike Vrabel. That's interesting. Don't know if they wouldn't get into specifics about whether they had a partner for that kind of thing. And a lot of speculation out there about would Vrabel go back to New England? And, okay, this thing snowballs on and on and on and on and on, where Vrabel was a great pro player. But I'm just shocked.
I'm shocked that it got to this point because I feel like I'm trying to find the exact quote, but there was division between the GM and Mike Vrabel. So I know that it's a firing, but it was probably a mutual ways of parting. And there's going to be teams that I think go after Mike Vrabel. I really do. I think the Patriots are probably a really good candidate for him to go back to. I mean, he's a very successful coach. I mean, he got his team to a #1 seed without, in my opinion, the true franchise quarterback.
Right.
I know you like Ryan Tannehill.
No, but he's not a franchise.
Yeah, but
we're in agreement on there.
But he was very successful. The thing that killed the Titans was trading away A.J. Brown. And when we initially saw that trade, we thought it was a pretty decent trade. They got a first-round receiver out of it and never panned out. And they were just never the same after that. That offense took a nosedive after that. And that's really where things, I think, started splintering for the GM and Mike Vrabel. I have to imagine Mike Vrabel probably didn't want the GM to trade away A.J. Brown. They ended up making that decision. They didn't retain their edge rusher that ended up going to the Eagles and having one of the better seasons of his career. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But, yeah, those decisions, I think, really led to the downfall of the Titans. And they probably disagreed on a lot of decisions that the GM made. And, unfortunately, I think that's probably why Mike Vrabel was fired.
I think it's organizational malpractice.
This. I think it is too.
Casey's right. There have been reports of division between Vrabel and the front office, and Amy Adams Strunk, I believe is her name, the owner of the Tennessee Titans, who has been putting this GM on a media tour ever since. The firing broke out yesterday. I think it's organizational malpractice. To have a guy do what he did for you. And if there is division, that's fine. You say we part ways amicably, right? Yeah, there's a mutual parting of ways. But to go out and fire a guy that everybody in the league would want,
right?
Everybody. I'm not talking a couple. Reed made the
28
analogy.
out of 32 teams would probably want Mike Vrabel.
28 out of 32 teams. And by the way, there's no better fit than what's probably going to happen when Bill Belichick mutually parts ways with the Patriots, and that's how you do. You show people respect. Showing respect is one of the most important things in the world, and clearly the Titans did not show respect by firing a guy who Tom said won Coach of the Year 2 years ago. He's led him to 2 division titles in only several years of being the head coach. I think it's organizational malpractice. Any foot in the right direction that franchise showed this year with Will Levis and maybe a little bit of hope, gone in the wind. Good luck to the Tennessee Titans. You've made a massive mistake.
Here's the thing: is this offseason have the most coaching talent Like there's 5 coaches on average hired every year, fired and hired every single year, and we're talking about Jim Harbaugh potentially being an NFL, one of the best coaches in the country, Bill Belichick, perhaps the greatest coach in the sports history, and then Mike Vrabel, who, as we just mentioned, 28 out of 32 teams would love to have. This is perhaps the most coaching talent out in the air that we've ever seen, and I think Mike Vrabel is going to actually have to take a back seat to whatever Jim Harbaugh is going to do. Because if you're wanting a head coach right now, you've got to see what happens with Jim Harbaugh first. You can't jump the trigger before you figure out where Harbaugh's going to go. Which that decision probably is going to be at least a week, maybe longer. Like we're at least, like, at the very minimum, we're going to hear about it next week. I think he might wait till after the postseason because he wants his brother to get some limelight because the Ravens are the best team in the league. So I think that a lot of these hirings, at least for Mike Vrabel, he's going to take a back seat until Jim Harbaugh decides where he wants to go.
All right. Anybody, anything else to add?
I just wanted to point out really quickly some of the stats for him. He's 54-45, 2 division titles, 3 playoff appearances, 2 playoff wins. Over the last 2 seasons, he's 13-21.
Yeah. Back-to-back losing years.
Yeah, but in my opinion, every time I've seen him play, it's been mainly against the Bengals. He's always come to play against the Bengals. He's always come to play against these teams and with minimal talent. He's always got his guys ready.
No doubt. No doubt. And, of course, then you get into the whole thing about some of the whack jobs up in Columbus talking about him replacing Ryan Day, and that ain't happening either.
Tom, the final thing we'll say before we wrap this up, Brian Callahan expected to interview for the Titans job. Just saw that come across the wire. That's now 3 teams that Brian Callahan is interviewing for the head coaching job. So I wouldn't say it's likely that the Bengals will have a new offensive coordinator, though it seems to be trending in that direction.
Although you ask yourself the question, and we'll get into this tomorrow, if you're a guy that's going to be offered an offensive coordinator's job, would you take the job if you're not calling plays? Eric Bieniemy did not call plays. He was part of the process calling plays, right? But I mean, are you going to go somewhere? And all of a sudden, if the offense is good, the play caller, in this case, Zach Taylor, gets all the credit. And if the offense is bad, you get dragged down the toilet, even though all you're doing is prepping the team for the game. If Callahan gets a job, and he deserves one, he's going to be a good coach. I just wonder, do you promote from within, go from there, guys make more money, they take the job, you're a coordinator, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we'll get into all this tomorrow. Our cherry on top. And you want to roll the music?
I'll roll it. Why not?
Okay. Because this one is one that is tied to the world of sports and tied to the world of politics, which are 2 of my favorite things in the world. But this one is beyond belief. Did you see this story from this morning?
Oh, no.
California State Controller is calling upon the California State Legislature to adopt legislation that would force Shohei Otani to pay California taxes on his deferred $700 million deal. So let me put this in perspective for a second. For the next 10 years, I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible because I needed it as simple as possible. Now try to put this in any other occupation in the world, okay? Let's say that your son or daughter just signs a $700 million contract, but has decided to defer $680 million of it and take a $2 million a year salary for the next 10 years. Okay? So that means that Shohei would pay taxes at the highest rate in the country, 15%. That doesn't include the federal government. This is the California state government in addition to it. Okay? So he's in the 38% tax bracket, and he's tacking on 14% more because he's making $2 million. So they're going to charge him, as they should, for the $20 million over the course of 10 years at 14% a year. But they want to rewrite the legislation in the state of California. Now think about the repercussions from this. Shohei at the end of 10 years could decide, I'm moving back to Japan. He could decide, I'm moving to Dallas, Texas. He could decide, I'm moving to Florida, where there is no state income tax. They are proposing legislation in the state of California that would charge him for living in Florida or living in Texas or living in Japan or living in Idaho. They would make him pay the 14% tax rate in the state of California, even if he doesn't live there.
That's preposterous.
How's that even possible?
Now, you wonder why people are running for the hills in the state of California. Look no further than stuff like this. If your son or daughter, we have the right to pick up and move wherever we want, make whatever kind of money we can. We make choices each and every single day. If Shohei Otani wants to defer $680 million, that's his call. If the Dodgers, his employer, want to pay it, that's their call. They agreed upon it. So now a third party, the state of California, is going to step in, and let's say it's your son or daughter. They signed this kind of deal. They're like, you know what, Mom, Dad, after these 10 years, I want to move back to Cincinnati. I want to raise a family out on the west side. I want to raise a family up in Hamilton. I want to raise a family out in Anderson Township. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to collect $680 million. And I'm going to pay my taxes in the state of Ohio. Because we do have a state income tax that's not 14 or 15%. But all of a sudden, out of left field, comes this tax bill from a place that your kid doesn't even live in. What's 14% of, so we said he's making $70 million a year.
Right.
Okay? What is,
would that be 7
what is
million?
14%? About $9 million, $10 million a year?
Somewhere in 9 million range, so
14% of 700 million is 98 million.
So
It's
you would owe
9.8
the state of
million.
California, while you're not living there, over the 10 years after you're no longer living there or playing here, you would owe them $100 million.
I bet his GM, or I bet his agent's not too happy now.
Well, they haven't enacted it yet, but
Not
that
yet.
is the proposal from the California State Controller. So we leave on such a pleasant note today. All right, well, sorry what happened. We're back at it tomorrow. Vach Lombardi's going to join us. By the way, we're also going to have Mike DeFabo from the Steelers, from The Athletic, who covers the Steelers.
There we go.
He's going to join us tomorrow as well. Just got confirmation of that. Marty Brenneman joins us on Friday. So a lot going on. Casey, thank you. This is not your fault. I want everybody to know that. Thank you. You did
Thank
all
you,
you
Tom.
could. Okay. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
all right. Have fun tonight, Dana Gardens.
thank you. I'll see you there. I'll get you a ticket, Tom.
To Dana Gardens? You got to buy a ticket to get in there before the game?
I mean, it's big time.
Well, I mean, there'll be a line outside the game to get in Dana Gardens, and it's cold.
That's
It
right.
is cold.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Dana's-
chilly
Dana's
getting in Dana Gardens.
Elliot's coming. Casey's coming. We'll just have a
You're
little.
going tonight?
I might be getting dragged there. That's
You're
for
going
sure.
tonight?
Unconfirmed, but I might.
Okay. All right. Well, have fun tonight, boys.
Thank
Tom's
you.
unconfirmed too. But
Well,
we're
my
working on
wife
it.
and daughter are going out to play pickleball with a couple friends, so that means Dad gets a night with
with the boys.
our dog at
With the
home.
boys.
At home? No. We're going to be dialed into Better Call Saul tonight for about a solid 3-episode
go.
run tonight.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
That's a big
Lay
league
low.
show.
All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.